Hello and welcome to another episode of The Aftermath. My name is Ian, and as always, I'm joined by Dylan.
Me.
The one and only. And we were able
hopefully only.
we were able to convince, though I wouldn't say it took a whole lot of convincing.
Yeah, it was more so a proposition that we took him up on.
Right, exactly. We got Dominic back here in the studio,
He's
so you know.
returned.
Glad to be here.
Man, what?
Came down from the mountains.
What?
A lost wanderer.
What a film that you just showed me tonight.
It was truly a pleasure to introduce you to it. It was one of those movies that when I first saw it was deeply moving and impactful.
Oh, man. If you can't tell, I don't really know how to fully encapsulate what just happened in this film. This was 2.5 hours.
It's okay, the audience can wait.
I'm just telling you, man, this was a fun, a really, really fun movie to watch.
Yeah.
I thought at first I was kind of nervous about where we were going because it does feel a little... It's made in 2003,
Yeah.
and so I know that it was like different times in a way, but like
Right.
sometimes, but I know that it's also from the perspective of like the 1870s. So like the rampant racism is like very like
Right.
it's
It's more widely accepted.
right, exactly, and that's okay. But like I was
As
kind
a
of
period piece, I think it works pretty well.
right. Watching it, I was kind of nervous at first. Like I didn't know where we were gonna go with that. Like I thought that he was gonna be like. I thought this was gonna take a really
going to go like full on genocide.
I'm not really. I just didn't. Again, the movie starts off, introducing us to our samurai character, but like our main focus is on the Tom Cruise character, which like you can tell he has like, openly killed Native Americans
Right.
and like kind of feels bad about it. So you're like, okay, yeah, you know, I can get behind what he's.
That makes sense.
But at the same time, it's like, ooh, there's a lot of hate there still. Well,
Yeah.
you know, in the time period, it makes sense. But man, that's the only reason what I was saying. I just was kind of nervous, like going into it. I was like, what are we gonna?
Right.
What is this movie gonna be about in a certain way? Because he's on the cover. He's on the cover, and we're talking about the Last Samurai, and it's like, oh man, now we're gonna go kill all the Japanese people. It's like,
Right.
it's a little scary at first, but that's not what ends up happening. You know, indirectly, but you know,
Right.
How did you end up seeing this movie, Dominic, for the first time?
Well, I wish I had a cooler story for that. So I work at a thrift store and I repair their electronics for them, and so I'm a huge fan of thrift stores. So I was at one that was sadly closing down, or in this particular day, it was good for me because they were selling off their movies like 10 cents a piece.
Oh yeah, of course.
Oh, no
So
way.
I'm rummaging through their bins, and it's a huge bin, and they're all like individually wrapped in CD sleeves instead of
one of those moments.
right. So it's densely packed, and I see this like half destroyed cover of a movie that says Last Samurai, and I thought it was that Sheen brother who's in Hot Shots. And I was like, no way.
Right.
Yeah.
And I was like,
Tom Cruise definitely doesn't look like normal Tom Cruise in this movie.
Right. So I got it, and I had every intention of watching it, and then I lost the disc.
Oh no.
So
Damn.
next time I was at a garage sale, or not next, eventually I was at another garage sale, and I found the DVD. I was like, okay, I'm going to watch it this time. So I got together with some friends who were learning Japanese and were huge fans of the film. So I had a room full of Last Samurai fans for my first. So it was a really cool moment. And they're all like, I could tell when a good moment was coming because they're all like staring at me like, oh, this is important. You got to like this part.
Right.
And of course, they were so right.
What would they have done if you didn't like it?
Probably would have
beaten me up as they should have.
right. They probably just would have shunned you.
Yeah. Well, yeah, there we go.
Excluded from the friend group because of your shame.
I was going to say, if they were really my friends, they would exclude me if I didn't like this one. Instant triple red
They
flag.
would have told you how many fingers to cut off to preserve your honor.
Right, to preserve your honor.
No, if you want to preserve your honor, you got to You gotta bite him off.
Yeah.
None
Oh,
of this
gosh.
knife weakness.
Please no.
Right.
Yeah. So to ease everyone's attention right at the get go, to kind of summarize, there's tension in Japan between like colonial, or well, I guess it's like industrial revolution America kind of, and they're trying to incorporate their like modernization into Japan.
Japan is trying to
Right, yeah.
incorporate America. Yeah.
But it feels really like they're also trying to push their agenda on them in a way.
Think of it as a big old cultural exchange. That
Japan is asking for.
Yes, but I think who's the character that plays like the ambassador, the Japanese Amora. Amora feels like there's. What I'm saying is like the emperor feels young and a little naive in a certain scenario, and he's taken the advice of his advisor, and his advisor is doing what's best for the interest of him. Right. Which is forcing American like rule in a certain way is what it feels like. They're wanting it, but I don't think all of Japan
So Amora wants the money and power that comes with American weaponry.
Of course.
And he wants to squash the rebellion of Katsumoto, who he's proclaiming to be the enemy of the people, but it seems just because he's getting in the way of Amora's railway company.
Of course.
Which is making him lots of money.
Yeah.
So
that's what I meant in that regard. Like I'm not saying that like America's over here like overbearing, but it just feels from the tension in the room, it's like it feels like one person around here really wants this to happen in the grand scheme of things, and because it's going to line his pockets.
And this is the guy who looks like the most evil Monopoly money guy.
He does. He looks like the Japanese version of Monopoly Man. Mm-hmm. He definitely has that kind of like, yeah. So, anyways, with that being said, our main man. What I will say, and I liked about this movie is that the first act was pretty quick, because the second act of this film is long and deliberate on purpose, and I love that. This movie does a really good job of setting up with the characters, kind of having you figure out who's good, who's bad, what's all happening here, and then of course our boy, his name's Nathan Algren. He gets nabbed up by the samurai himself, and instead of being killed, he's kind of like a prisoner of war, but
he puts on a good show.
Right,
kills one of the big the big red dude.
Right. He stands up for his own, and like again, if nothing else, he kind of proves that like if nothing else, he can hold his own.
After he saw that, Cosmo was like, "Oh shit!"
He's like, you know what? Maybe
I'll just be taking you.
But I thought that it was going to play more of a factor in it, but it didn't. Mm-hmm. There's like a little moment at the very top where Katsumoto has like the main
he's like
samurai guy
meditating on a hill,
right?
And he has this vision,
of
a white tiger surrounded by samurai,
right? And then of course, as if it's prophecy coming true, our main man Algren over here is swinging a sword with a banner of a white lion,
suspiciously tiger-like,
right? Just trying to fiend for himself, just like trying his best to stay alive.
Mm-hmm. So I will argue with Ian just very briefly and with all good nature. He's not necessarily fending off like he was losing this fight like to begin with.
Right.
He actually rolls in and as a white man going up against samurai with a literal pistol. Yeah. As his men are being mowed down around him, takes out several samurai quite easily. Then gets stabbed multiple times in his hip and his shoulder.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And then is still managing to make 5 or 6 samurai stay back when he's using the broken end of someone else's spear that he took from him as he was killing him.
Oh, yeah. I didn't mean to minimize that moment because it was incredible. But what I'm saying is there's this moment when he's on his knees just like flailing about like a madman with a stick with a sword on it that's broken. And it's like, yes, he did. He held his own. But at this very moment, it's like, if you ever looked a little vulnerable, it's like you're being surrounded and you're like, he's like trying his hardest. Yeah. But then at the very end, the red samurai guy, which was his name ever actually given?
Yeah, they said his name. I just don't remember what it was.
Anyways, he
very complicated in Japanese.
Right. Yeah, right. So he ends up he's about to put Nathan out of his misery in a certain way, which, at the very end, his ingenuity comes and he gets stabbed in the neck, which is the ending of him, and that's when, of course, our guy Katsumoto,
yes,
he gets, he kind of intervenes and is like, hold, wait a minute.
That's the cat I saw.
This is the guy.
That whole vision on a mountaintop thing was pretty legit, very cinematic.
Cool. Right, it was very brief, and it was really good though. But so yeah, but Anyways, like I said, so after this moment, he gets captured and is like kind of pseudo a prisoner of war of some kind, and boy howdy,
you wouldn't think it. There's no torture of any sort.
No, and that's what I mean. I was like in this, I'm trying to breeze past some things. Billy Connolly plays
Sam.
No, he plays Gant. Anyways, Zebulon Grant, I think is his name. Apparently here on the character sheet, whatever. But he plays a Scottish man, and he plays like this. What a great.
I've heard his voice before.
Yes, he's played in.
He's in Brave,
things.
and he's
the father.
He's also in one of my personally favorite movies of his is Muppet Treasure Island.
Yes,
I mean obviously.
Apparently, he was also in the Battle of the Five Armies.
Oh yeah, he was King Dane.
Yes, he was. Oh wow. Okay, yeah. So, anyways,
that's funny.
Yeah, what a great cast list. But I loved his character. What a little fireball he was.
Oh, yeah.
What a fun little firecracker. But yeah,
it's so loyal and lovable too.
Yeah, And I said obey my order, and it's like, with all due respect, sir, shove it up your ass. Yeah. and it's like
this movie has so many great loyal characters, and so that's when Nathan Algren is facing against the samurai for the first time, and a whole battalion of men is freaking out. And so he tells his loyal friend, hey, go see to the distributions on the end. And he goes, yeah, with all due respect, shove that order up your ass. I am not leaving you.
Right.
And that is so heartwarming.
Yeah. This whole, again, the reason, like I was saying before, the first act of this film is kind of brief because it makes way for this long middle section. And it is the epitome of rapport and just character building. Our guy Nathan, because the whole premise of this movie, if we can just go ahead and lob this off while we can, is our guy Nathan kind of turning sides, thinking after being a man killing Native Americans, considering them savages because of their lifestyle, and then forcefully being put into a very similar scenario where he's like around these quote unquote savages, but they're actually this very refined lifestyle of people. And of course he has to like see them in that way and then survive and make his own way in this community. And then he gets to see these people for who they really are. And they're not savages. They're people with their own way of living. And just because they're different than you doesn't mean that they're, they don't have the same sort of technology you do. Doesn't mean they're any less than you, which is great, and it's a great premise for a film, and I love that. And that's why I was saying at first I was nervous because I was like, "Where are we going to go with this?" But then as the movie, as you start to, you see this long runway ahead of you of oh, okay, so he's going to be in this city or in this village, I guess, with these samurai. You kind of get the feeling you're like, okay, so he's gonna hopefully see these people for who they really are.
Right.
So one of my favorite things about this movie is the character building, like Ian's been talking about.
Yeah.
And one of the beautiful things that they do is they show what one character is, and then immediately the scene after is what this other character is not. So in the opening scene, we see that Katsumoto is at peace, and he's in nature and in his homeland, and he's having a vision. So he has a sense of spiritual enlightenment about him, and not only an understanding of his present, but of the future, and a willingness to accept whatever comes his way. The next scene, we see that Algren is tortured, and not only in his present, but he's tortured by the past.
in a real bad way.
He hasn't been able to move past the atrocities that he's committed, and at the same time, he's being expected to come up on stage and
parade them around like a badge of honor.
Yeah, kind of use his history of atrocities for capitalism and for gain, and so he's disgusted, I think, by both what he's done and the puppetry that he's doing now. So we see him kind of break down on the stage a little bit, and we see a glimpse of more of what he sees, that he doesn't see the Native Americans as some hostiles, but as men and women, someone's father that got shot. Mm-hmm. And this gun that he's holding will blow a hole through any man.
Yeah.
And that
there's a really impactful line that kind of ties what you're talking about together. After I think it's either the first or second conversation that he has with Katsumoto, and he says that he talks about that specifically about kind of being haunted by the people that he's killed, or the people that you killed. And you're like, you felt the same thing as well, right? And he's like, only I think Katsumoto's words, paraphrasing in a way, is like, only men that regret what they've done have nightmares about the killing that they have committed. And it's like, oh shit. Because he's like, the men that I've killed have all been in honor and have been respectful. Because he was talking about there was a Japanese warrior that they used to fight alongside Katsumoto, and then in his failure and shame, what is it called whenever they stab themselves? There's like a name for it.
Right. I'm trying to remember.
While you think about it, he's stabbing himself, and Katsumoto cuts off his head out of honor, like, because that was his failure and the shame. And as an American, he sees that moment as like so you're just gonna go ahead and kill one of our guys on their knees? Like that's shameful in of itself. And he was like, no, that's actually like how we kind of view honor in a certain way.
It's called seppuku.
Seppuku, okay. Mm-hmm. And so so there was like a little back and forth, but then it kind of sheds light on the subject matter you're talking about, where he's like, I'm sleeping fine at night. You're the one who's having nightmares because you regret what you did, because you know that you did something that was not good.
Right. How about you confront all that baggage you're carrying, bro?
You shot men and women and children as they were running away from you.
And
I can look at my enemies in their face and kill them.
And not only that, but Algren is mentioning things that his commanding officer instructed him to do. The man we can really hate in this story. Mm-hmm. And so it wasn't like Algren was like, yippee, I get to shoot women and children. Yes. In the moment, he was telling his commanding officer these people had nothing to do with the raids the other night. And his commanding officer was like, screw him, whatever. Who cares? So in that, a lot of PTSD comes from doing things you never expected to see yourself doing. And Algren is definitely being tortured by those memories in very much the same way.
Right.
One of the things that humanizes Katsumoto is, after discussing that you have nightmares when you have shame for what you've done, he alludes to the fact that it's not that he feels great after killing another army. He still is conflicted by what he does, and so he has to go back to the place of his ancestors and remember the nature of war. Mm-hmm. That we're all dying, and kind of reflecting on the nature of beauty and peace itself. And so I think that in that, as he's instructing Algren of how to move past his shame in so many ways, he's reminding him that it's human to have a heaviness about death, mm-hmm. and then how to transcend that.
I think another big thing for him, doesn't he learn that he killed Taka's husband, mm-hmm. and then he has those like vivid nightmares and starts like screaming and hollering and stuff?
No, that's okay. Before. So Algren has been using alcohol to
suppress.
To keep his memories. So as he's a prisoner of war and he's in Taka's house under her understandably distant care. Right. Mm-hmm. She's basically forcing him to dry out, like Dylan's alluding to. And we continue to see that his nightmares get worse.
Of course. What little bit of alcohol is probably able to subside is no longer the case. Mm-hmm. He's begging for it, and she's like, no.
Yeah.
It's not. And it's also probably better for his health, anyways. He's trying to recover from some wounds and like drinking.
Stabbed in the shoulder and hip.
Exactly. It's like being constantly drunk's not going to help. So it's probably, you're right. It's probably like a little bit of neglect, but also probably care in some way. It's it's just that's not. I can numb the pain for a minute, but like you being constantly drunk is not going to help this scenario.
Right. And it also doesn't seem honorable to be drunk. And
of course,
kind of making sure that her forced house guest is abiding by house rules. Right. You're not going to be drunk and bleed everywhere. But it
show some respect and don't bleed on my carpet.
Right. One of the things I love about this movie is they give exposition when we need it.
Yeah.
We're opening up and it's like, hey, I wonder when exactly this is. One of the commercials basically that Algren's a part of mentions that we're celebrating our centennial. It's like, okay, so 1776 plus 100, 1876. Right. And then just to be helpful, about a minute later, they flash it across the screen. San Francisco, 1876. Like, well thank you. Thank you.
Era established.
Right.
But in your classic good guys on one side with a bunch of shady characters and realizes tribal people have a better life, and he goes, screw you guys, I'm going to go fight for them.
Yeah.
It's like usually this dumb jock of a character is like, I'm good at fighting, so you know what? I'm going to go fight for them, and suddenly I can speak the language of the people.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But it's alluded to several times that Algren has studied the Native American cultures heavily, and he's written books on them. He learned their language crazy quickly. I was so much of a sympathizer. He was considered a wuss, by his commanding officer several times.
Right.
So when it comes, it's less of a surprise that he switched to the samurai. More of course. Of course, that's what Nathan would.
That's the excuse.
Right.
To get back at that prick.
It definitely, what you're saying is right. It doesn't feel forced. It feels as though it's part of his character that like he is here. And while he's here, he's also being cared for and respected in a way that he may not have expected. Mm-hmm. And I think with that, anybody would. This is a prime example of like surrounding yourself in a culture is how you learn the language best, and how you like really. I worked with a guy who was like, I knew not a lick of Russian, and then I went to go live and work in Russia for. I think he worked there for like 12 or 13 years, and he was like by the time I was like a handful of years in, he's like I could like read signs and like talk and like he's like I still got made fun of for my poor accent, but like I could communicate with people. And I was like, that's crazy. And he was like, by the time I was leaving, he's like, this is the crazy part. He's like, but by the time I like the 13 years were up, there was this weird moment where he's like there was these chapter moments where he's like, I remember whenever I like understood conversations that were happening around me, and he was like, there's this, it was like a handful of years later, he's like, I remember having thoughts in Russian, where he was like my like I was in my inner dialogue wasn't in English anymore. It was like I could think in Russian, and he's like, and then by the time I was leaving, he's like, I would have dreams in Russian, where he's like, I would like it was really crazy, and he was anyways so. It's a prime example of that, where he's only here for give or take a year, and he's like picking up on all these qualities because he's probably being treated better. And even at one point in his notebook when he's writing, he's like, "This is the longest I've been in one place since like before I went out to war, basically."
Mm-hmm. This is the longest I've been in one place since I left the farm at 17.
It's crazy,
man.
And keep in mind, he was only there for winter. He was there for like
maybe
4 months.
Yeah. So it's like it's crazy to think about that.
Yeah.
So yeah. Anyways, like we've been talking about, this whole middle section really just there's all these really great moments where, I mean, he's getting beat down, but he just keeps getting back up, just like his character would. Mm-hmm. He's stumbling over words and trying to figure out how to understand things, just like his character would. And then at each step of the way, he's realizing that like, maybe these people aren't so bad after all.
Right. What am I doing here?
Right. And man, like, there are so many great auxiliary characters in this film. I love the kids. Mm-hmm. I loved I loved how do you pronounce his name? Weijo? Weijo, I think is the name.
Is that U-I?
Yeah, U-I-J-O.
That's
Yuijo, I don't know. Anyways, it's like his
sounds
second.
like a Mario character.
Yeah. It's a Luigi. Yeah, my favorite character in this film was Luigi. no, it's the guy with the horns on his helmet.
Yeah.
It's like almost like the second in command guy. Just this. I mean, this distrust for him, but at the same time, mutual respect in a way that comes after this kind of like rivalry, because he was there whenever he kills Red Samurai Man, and then at that point, I don't know his name, so that's just what I'm gonna go with. But anyways, so he was there during that moment. And it's like, oh man, this is there's this kind of tension there, but as our guy Nathan kind of shows him that respect in the same way, it's returned, and it's really cool to see that his characters grow, and it's super cool.
One of my favorite bits of this film is as he's like starting to learn under Uejo.
Yeah.
He he's been going and training with him, what I'm assuming like at least once or twice every day.
Right.
And the people, like the other warriors around him, like start taking bets.
Yeah, right.
On like how many moves he's gonna win in, or if he's gonna win at all. It's super funny.
It is really cool to see just like everyday workings of this village.
Yeah.
Man, there are so many great moments in this film.
Yeah.
Whenever the ninjas all attack,
dude,
and
the fucking ninjas,
and he stands up.
Oh my god,
super cool.
Mm-hmm.
So, this is my favorite transition in the movie.
Yeah.
So we meet our characters. We have honor and peace against dishonor and turmoil, which leads to their conflict on the battlefield, which then obviously brings Nathan into captivity. And in captivity, he is isolated and doors are shut time and time again to keep him out of view of the family. And then little by little, he's brought out into the village and to meet Katsumoto and to have conversations, as Katsumoto would say. And obviously over time, Nathan becomes part of the village and struggles with Uejo and becomes a competent swordsman, but has not yet been given a sword. So the night of the attack, Algren was the first to recognize the ninjas and call for Katsumoto to duck, basically. And then there's this moment of sacrifice where so many of his villagers, of his friends,
people are stepping in front of this guy left and right,
just
to keep him safe.
And I think about the weight of knowing that people you loved and cared for died, and then Algren brings the family inside and seeking to protect them again, taking down two ninjas barehanded, and the little boy at the family, when they're under attack, goes to his father's armor and grabs his sword. Oh, he's an okay swordsman. We've seen him do stuff, but this ninja attacks this kid and starts getting him on the ground, and this is a point in the movie, honestly, where I always cry of, this boy was not going to see his family murdered in front of him.
No.
He showed such strength and bravery in the face of barely imaginable danger. Yep. And of course, there's this great rally and they're saved. But for me, it's the heaviness of that scene to me is that's when Algren shows that he's a true part of the village. He's come to defend what's become his family. Mm-hmm. But the whole time he's been trapped there because the passes were frozen. If the ninjas got in, the passes are open, which means Algren's time there is limited, if not gone. And so the same moment he's become a true family member, he's probably going to say goodbye. And that's such a heavy moment for me.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's really cool. And like you're saying already, it's this moment where once he gets on his feet, he's standing side by side with the person he kind of considered an enemy a handful of months ago. And it's cool to see that transition. But man, are we ready to talk about the ending? Are we ready to jump on that right now, or do you want to say anything else before I really start to unpack this thing? Because you want to talk about an emotional show. Because
yeah, let's real quick
touch
on the quality of the armor.
I love the costume design. The
Me
only thing I can say is that Hollywood has a problem with masks. They don't like masks. They don't like helmets. And it's so sad that there is a costume department that made some really kick-ass masks in this film, and they don't get any screen time. And I was so upset about it. I was like, I really want to see those sick-ass helmets. The Katsumoto has one of the a super cool samurai mask, and you see it for maybe a whole 2 seconds, and it's gone. And I'm like,
I agree.
And he never wears it again. And I'm like, I just think it'd be cool, especially in the very end of the film.
Yeah.
But that's also coming from a guy who's a sucker for a really cool helmet.
And I would say, even if you wanted to please your Hollywood audience of seeing their emotional faces in the final battle, leave it to where the initial part of the battle, they're wearing their mask and they're
just have it get knocked off or something.
Yeah. Well, even at the end, if they're trying to get some air and they take off their mask, oh man, that was rough back there, right?
I can't breathe in this thing.
Yeah, and then just never put them back on because it's in the heat of battle. Yeah,
because I feel the same way about I understand that it's Tom Cruise. I understand that he's the leader, but whenever he puts the red suit on, but he never touches the helmet, I think
that every time,
and I was like, that's kind of sad. But I said, it is right now. But I know that it's just a thing that Hollywood has against it, which is why I think I loved, and I won't go on this rabbit trail too far. That's why I love The Mandalorian, because it shows that you can show emotion in objects and other things in the world, and body language that you don't need the face for, which is super cool. But we won't go there. Yeah. Another topic, another day. But that was one thing I love. The armor sets, all the kimonos and robes and everything, super cool looking costumes for this whole movie was super good.
I just love those old armor sets.
Yeah.
For samurai with the mask with the crazy mustache on there. I love that shit.
I'm telling you, Katsumoto's his whole getup he had. I was digging it. Mm-hmm. I loved the kind of the sharp shoulders he had with the kind of cool. It was super cool. I loved it. Love seeing it. Was that all you want to touch on?
How about them swords?
I love it, dude.
Do enjoy a pointy stick.
And they're so shiny.
Yeah. What were you going to say?
As they should be.
The landscapes, every other shot is a sweep of a landscape, just for a second to remind us that we're in beautiful rural Japan.
So
right.
Pretty.
Well, I got a fun fact for you.
I was gonna say, it might not have been Japan.
Yeah, we'll save that for.
It's probably New Zealand or something. But
that's exactly what it was.
It's really fucking China, so it's New Zealand.
Yeah, you already spoiled it, but there is a fun fact here that definitely says that. Let's see. Yeah, it says that in fact The Last Samurai was actually filmed in New Zealand, not Japan.
I would love to see a collection of movies that are in New Zealand, because I have yet to see a movie filmed in New Zealand that was garbage.
Oh, it was hard.
I mean, Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
Great.
Beautiful.
Last Samurai.
Beautiful.
Great. And you know what they all have in common?
They're all beautiful. They're all beautiful.
It's a hell of a benchmark.
I mean, it is a beautiful landscape. It is a magical land that almost doesn't feel real. I've never been personally, but I've heard that by many people.
So one of these days.
The second act is hard to keep strong. They don't call it the second act SAG for no reason. This movie is the second act I don't want to leave.
Oh, yeah.
The third act comes, and I don't want to.
It ruins everything.
Yeah, I'm just like, no. End movie. They're standing there in the orchard. Flower blossoms.
Everybody you cared about is dead now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, real Hamlet ending.
But the thing is, I because how the ending happened, I loved it.
No.
Yeah, I loved it. It was sad. It was heavy, but I wouldn't have want that ending to have gone any other way.
That's true. That's true. With the character development,
right?
That's what's right for those characters.
Right.
It just makes me sad.
Exactly. I'm not saying that in a perfect world, in a utopia, that you're right. At the end of Act 2, that you wouldn't be like, and then they all lived happily ever after. But we all know that's not how it happens.
They were later butchered.
Right.
Mercilessly.
The Americans have to show off their cannons somehow. Yeah, ooh, shiny, and they're like brass plated or whatever.
Can it cut things though?
Yeah.
This movie, from the first fight, the first battle, I love this score because
Hans Zimmer, man.
There's a section in all of it where hey, this is a battle, this is exciting. there's another layer of, but people are dying, and both sides. That's sad.
Let me go ahead and throw a little fun fact in there about the score. While he was writing the score for The Last Samurai, Hans Zimmer felt that his knowledge of Japanese music was very limited, even after doing extensive research. When he took what he had written to Japan for feedback, he was shocked when he was asked how he knew so much about Japanese music because they all loved it so much.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
If there's one instrument from Japan that I love to death,
yes,
is the taiko drum.
Right.
I will never get tired of hearing those things.
That bass was awesome.
Yeah, he really was
so good.
He was just getting it
because it's my favorite kind of drum.
Yeah,
just the way it sounds, it's perfect.
It's cool.
Side note: I was talking about favorite instruments. Mine in film is the kalimba, and especially in Lethal Weapon 2.
Oh yeah,
because the kalimba in the background just makes those fight scenes perfect, and you wouldn't think such delightful. It's kind of like someone playing a ukulele in a fight, but it works so well.
Right.
They
How
somehow
fun.
make it work.
Well, if you don't mind, there's it's such a great culmination.
Mm-hmm.
There's one thing that I will say that I know Ethan would have hated. He would have hated the whole romance with Taka. And for me, I thought it was
I kind of didn't like it.
It was
either,
a little forced.
if I'm being honest.
I didn't mind the kind of weird tension up until the suiting of the armor thing. I felt that should have been a little more disconnected.
Yeah.
I liked the respect, but I thought it should have been more like in a little more honorable of a way.
It's
but that's just me personally. But
that's actually really interesting to me, because one of my favorite things about the movie is how small things are really big.
right.
So Algren's been spending a long time in isolation. Every scene for the last probably 10 minutes we've seen is people shutting doors and him drying out and having flashbacks. And eventually he has a conversation with Katsumoto, which is our first little breath of like, oh man, okay, someone's talking to him like a person.
Right.
But then he's at the dinner table and it's really tense.
Yeah.
Understandably so.
Mm-hmm.
Until this like 4-year-old kid looks at him and starts making faces like, ah.
You're right.
And we see, man, 4-year-olds are 4-year-olds.
Right.
Later on, in the beginning of Act 3, Algren is saying goodbye to the family that he's come to love, and Taka's like washing, but she's not like full nude at all. She's like mostly in a bathroom, like her arm hanging out, and she's like, oh, sorry. And like after so long in fictional Japan, I'm like, oh my goodness, look away, man, that's her shoulder. Look away, look away.
Right.
And he's like, but she's so beautiful, I can't. And she's like, oh, it's Tom Cruise.
Right.
Sumi must excuse me.
And then
Gomina, sorry.
going to the end, in a lot of Hollywood stuff, they would have to have made out, and the lights would have to go off, and we hear like bed creaking and all the crass stuff we really don't need. In this one, I saw it as really intimate, but not necessarily sexual, very sensual for sure, of her slowly putting on the robe and running her hand. And that rings true for me because she's seen him as a man. She's seen him be very diligent and determined.
Right.
And she's seen him change and learn the language.
I'm not saying it wasn't touching. I thought it was a sweet moment.
Right.
But for me, like
But I think the big thing is that he's going to defend his new people.
Right.
And I think that she thought it was fitting for him to have the right armor.
right.
And
I'm not downplaying that at all.
Right.
In my opinion, a lot of the intimacy was more so her reflection of the husband she lost and how many times she put those garments on him before combat.
Yeah.
And the thought that she just met this man.
Yeah.
And he means a lot to her, but she can't lose another person.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert, she's lost her husband.
Yeah.
She's lost her brother.
Mhm.
Yep.
And now she's losing this strange man, but still, that's a lot of death in a short amount of time. And another sort of father figure her children are going to have to lose.
Yeah.
And again, putting on that armor that the last time she put it on a guy, he died.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So,
heavy.
yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't come out of nowhere. It still feels weird.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one that feels weird to me, but I think we might have more so strong disapproval, mild disapproval, and then I'm kind of here for it in the sense of
right.
I love romance, and if you've seen Star Wars Episode 2, you've seen a much more forced romance.
Oh, I know. I'm not saying
I'm a senator.
Right. I'm not saying like it, I'm not saying that it was.
Sand.
I'm not saying it wasn't the. I'm not saying that it was the worst I've ever seen in the world.
Right.
I'm just saying, like, for me, I just would have rathered had that barrier of like, I respect you and I care about you and I possibly love you, but I'm not willing to cross that threshold yet because it still feels a little too real.
Yeah, I'm not gonna put your kimono on. Come on.
Right. No. I'm not gonna. I'm not gonna kiss you with my eyes open. Like, it was a little strange for me. It was like I just felt like it was a little forced in that matter. I felt like having that moment where you're looking into his eyes, like you're saying, having this real moment of like this may very well be the last time I see you. And you know what? I actually kind of care about you now, and that means much more to me in this moment than something else like that. Like, or anyway, like that's just what I meant. But anyways, that doesn't.
And the energy I get from that kiss is less of passion, and again, for me, it's so much of the memory of her putting on those garments of like, I know you're not my husband,
but if we. Right. Can I?
It just doesn't feel right to end this.
Can I say
one
though,
for the road?
Please, no, don't say it like that. One thing I can say that is really heavy that I kind of alluded to at the top is there's a point whenever he asks or he says it's the first time he meets him and he's going through the list of people. He's like, oh yeah, this person's my son, that is my brother-in-law or something like that, and then he's like. And the woman that's taking care of you is his wife. And he's like, yo, wait, I killed her husband?
Yeah.
And it's like all of a sudden it gets real for him. And he's like, yeah, and she's going to care for you. And she's going to be, honored to do it in a way. And he's like, oh, way to make you look like the jackass here. Right. Even though it's like, he died in battle and he did his duty. And we all know that. We all understand that. And that's the way life works sometimes. Yeah. And it's like, it's interesting to see, like we've already said numerous times in this episode, is this kind of conversion of like what I think versus what you think, and what may be right to you may not be right to me in a certain way. Yeah. And his kind of character development as he's like, oh, like I see things your way now. And
certain things that about Katsumoto that Algren needs, and certain things about Algren that Katsumoto needs, and we'll get into that soon. Right. But the thing that I think Algren had to learn was what honor was, how to regain it, but something that I think he didn't see in Japan, and I think brought empathy to that of, not empathy, that's wrong. He brought compassion to it.
There you go, yeah.
Of Taka is in emotional pain, and she is doing her samurai duty of taking care of this person as a prisoner and showing him honor despite the shame that he should be feeling.
Right.
Because her leader asked her to.
Yeah.
But Algren doesn't see it that way, as something that is honor and duty. He sees it the American way.
Of course.
This is the love of her life, potentially, that I stabbed to save my own skin, which is fair, but also
kind of messed up.
Not fair.
Yeah. But I think again, if we really get deep and analytical here, if we talk about his character intrinsically, how he is now being cared for by a woman that has lost her husband that he killed, probably, like you're saying, to save his own skin. Maybe not like I don't want to say it not intentional, because again, you don't really know the intention. But what I'm saying is like to correlate that feeling and how it's so heavy there with the very thing that started off this movie, with him killing man, woman, and children of all kinds, and of course knowing that like he is a bad person for doing that, and then being in this scenario where it's like, I have been in a scenario where there are possibly women that have lost their husbands because of my actions, and now I'm in this I'm staring face to face at the person that would call me an enemy, and she is sitting here being, as polite and kind as,
giving me more rice.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And it's like that's heavy.
Made sure
that's
that
hard.
I had clean clothes.
That's a hard pill to swallow for anybody.
Actually, here's one again, beautiful cinema here. He is coming in from his meeting with Katsumoto that he heard that lesson, and then he sees Taka walk behind him and kneel down and start wiping, and he realizes that he wore his muddy boots into the house.
Yeah.
Wait, sorry. I'm sorry. Podcast people,
That's okay. No, yeah.
dear friends, I was wrong.
Oh, no.
That was the day before.
Right.
Everyone shame
After
him.
that lesson.
No.
And he felt bad for
Right.
that for the next day, especially after hearing that.
Yeah. But it's
From
all it's,
Katsumoto, he left his boots like pristine, clean outside the house
Right.
and walked in barefoot. Of like, I'm not doing that to this
Right.
woman.
Yeah.
Saint of a woman.
right.
Like,
But it
rice
all,
paper stained glass. Here we come.
right, and it all I think adds to the growing of his character in this famous or infamous Act 2 we keep talking about. In that, again, like it's those
Well,
moments
it's a
where
2-hour act
well,
too,
but what I'm saying is like in that moment, that's like again that is an ignorance thing and not like a vindictive
right.
thing. But it's like the
I'll
second
show you, woman.
the second that like everyone's like hey let's all go outside or let's go outside or whatever, and everyone's like kind of being kind and polite, and he's like, oh shit, like I kind of messed up here.
What did I do?
Instead of doubling down and being a jackass about it, he's like, oh, let me be respectful to the people that are being respectful to me. But yes.
Okay, so I'm really glad that I could have brought this movie over and shared it. Dylan has seen it before. This is Ian's first time.
You have seen it before?
Yes.
Really? Okay, interesting.
And I got halfway through and I was like, ooh, I actually kind of regret bringing in this movie because this movie is really complicated. I have no idea what I'm going to say other than, guys, it's so good. Go watch it.
Yeah.
It is.
It is
You know
really
what?
good.
There's nothing wrong with that.
The thing is,
We end some of our episodes like that.
yeah, the complexity of the human emotion is fickle and hard to describe sometimes, and this is intrinsically like that because,
It's
go
gonna
for
hit you.
I'm telling you, my guy, there's a moment whenever, and I'm in this, it's that, I'm getting ahead of myself. There's a moment whenever, let's go ahead and let's transition into that ending we keep talking about. There's a moment whenever it's like you said a little bit earlier in the episode, the path is clear and like there people are going to be coming through, and so you gotta go. Either like we head out, or you can go back to your home country, and there's a whole discussion about that, and he knows that he has to leave in some way. And he's in a room, and what was the guy's his commanding officer, Colonel Bagley?
I think
Yeah.
so.
I just
Colonel-
look at him and
yeah.
like call him jerk blonde.
Yeah,
guy.
right.
I hate
The
that guy so much.
It's
I
like
just forget his name.
it's his it's like his commanding officer in a way, and he's the kind of the guy that he's been answering to for a majority of this film. He walks into his room, and starts like, kind of like berating him in a way, and and he is like talking about how I got you your salary back. I basically got you back pay for the time that you were a prisoner of war. Also, you're welcome, by the way. And then just starts like going and but he's like taking his time saying all these things, and he's like, so what'd you learn? All this kind of stuff. And the whole time Nathan is not saying a single word, and you can tell he's like kind of on
a couple swigs of whiskey.
kind of on edge about the whole thing. And he's like, yep, at this rate, with the rate that you're getting paid at, you can live in the bottle all you want rest of your days. You can stay drunk, forgetting your past. Right. And it's like all these like little subtle digs that he's giving into him, that it's like, man, you watch out, you're dealing with a very sensitive subject here. And then at the very end, one of the kids gave him like a scroll that has like a kanji symbol on it, or some sort of like a Japanese symbol. It was never, I don't think it was ever alluded what it meant. I never quite got what it understood. Doesn't matter. It was sentimental because the kid handed it to him on his way out and was like, as like this means something.
Hey, white dad.
Right.
Take this, remember, don't die.
Right. So and he the commanding officer is like looking at it, and then he finishes up by saying, so tell me, why do you hate your own people? And it's like and then there's this
mirror lately?
And there's this long beat where where Tom Cruise is looking at the camera and the commanding officer's behind him. So it's and you can see both of them in frame, but Tom Cruise is not looking at him, and you can see in his eyes this pain and this frustration of like how
can you ask that?
The audacity of you asking that kind of question to me right now. Because whenever he does, it's like, man, at this point, you know him really well. You know the character Nathan that Tom Cruise is playing. Mm-hmm. You know him pretty well. So whenever a question like that is asked, I felt I may have even instinctually, I don't know if I did or not, said it out loud. If I didn't, I was definitely thinking it of like, have you seen what we've done so far?
Right.
Why do you think I hate
what's
to like about us? We're just out here just killing people just because we feel like it, right. And I'm out here living with these samurai.
These
supposed savages, and I'm happier there than I've ever been with you. Mm-hmm. And it's like, ooh, and the thing is, I'm thinking that, and you know for a fact that Tom Cruise's character's thinking that, but he says nothing. And it's like, and it just, for me, it just feels like that. My mom always said, if I've got nothing nice to say, don't say anything at all, is what it felt like. Because then he just moseys on out and walks out, and it's like, oh, buddy. Anyways, it's moments like that in this film that, like you're saying, these subtle things that make great impacts, and that was one of them for me.
So it was just after the conversation between Katsumoto and Algren about only people who regret what they've done have nightmares, and his resolution there, that they get message that the Emperor has called Katsumoto to Tokyo to have a discussion, and Katsumoto tells Algren, "You can do whatever you want. You can go home. You're free now." And he goes, "Well, I guess we're going to Tokyo, man."
Yeah.
And they get there, and we see that we learned from the second minute of the movie that Katsumoto was one of the Emperor's teachers. And so we see this very young Emperor walking with Katsumoto, and they're having this conversation. And I think it was Carl Rogers who says that I know that I have maturity as a person to the extent with which I am enthusiastic to see someone else growing in their individuality and who they are as a separate person from myself. And so I think about that, and it's oddly, I think even deeper in this scene, Katsumoto is walking with the Emperor, and the Emperor keeps asking Katsumoto for his advice, and Katsumoto continues to submit to this little boy of an Emperor that he could kill with a thought, and continues to go, "Emperor, it is your voice that we need. And, like, don't talk about yourself that way. We need you." And
you are a living God.
Yes, just you're so right. How much submission in that of, I will not let you
make me tell you how to do this.
Yes. I will submit in every way but that one, because I cannot speak as the Emperor. I am not the Emperor.
Right. It's not up to me.
And just when the Emperor pushes a little bit more for his advice, I mean, Katsumoto drops to the ground in a kneel. It's like, and I think about that. I'm not sure how religious we got on this podcast, but I think about that in my relationship with the Lord.
Right.
Of all that time, I, as a human being, look at what I believe to be an eternal God and say, "Nah, I know better than that." Katsumoto's looking at a little boy and submitting better than I've ever done to a holy God.
There you go.
And that is really moving. Now, again, back to also moving. What if we did that in our human interactions in general? Just like, Ian, I respect you too much.
Yeah. I understand completely. And that's totally right. And it is heavy to see that sort of thing when it's like you are potentially, because you can tell the actor looks young, and you can tell from an Emperor perspective that the actor playing him and his facial expressions are one of, like, I don't know what I'm overwhelmed in a certain way, with a certain level of stoicism as well. Right. But there are these moments whenever he's asking his mentor or teacher, in that matter, this samurai that has like years on him in a way, and he's like, "Just tell him what to do," and he's like, "Nope, I cannot do that." Do it. And it's like, and at that point, there is a level of respect in that is so crazy. And it also is a little frustrating, because it's like, I understand there's this chain of command, there's this thing, but I understand why he is the way he is, because of these traditions, because of this respect, all that kind of stuff. So it's understandable, which I think is what makes the ending so powerful and hit home for me in a whole new way.
And again, in another study of shocking contrast, after going from Katsumoto's just incredible humility in the face of the emperor, we go to Amora pouring a drink, dealing with ambassadors from other countries.
Being sleazy.
Oh, is it being such a slimy businessman here of like, oh, well, I'm going to talk to all the other delegates we have, pushing around his weight and making decisions for the emperor as if he were the emperor. And just, I think you said the audacity, the sliminess.
Yeah.
And
that's what it comes across
I'm
as.
going to throw up in my mouth.
I want to briefly touch on this because we're getting pretty close here. I want to briefly touch on this because it is beautiful, the fight sequence, because I want to really delve into the ending here. But the fight sequence, the cinematography, the kind of chaotic nature of it all, the introduction of these like big weapons, and this beautiful fight sequence that culminates what Katsumoto and Nathan have been talking about this whole movie, about like this kind of blending of two cultures. And there's that beautiful moment where where they're just giving it all they got. Mm-hmm. And the representative, what is his name? Omura? Mm-hmm. Omura? Yeah. Omura is sitting there and he's like, he's already failed. He should have given up. Mm-hmm. And it's like, but you're forgetting that he's different now. And he's willing to fight for his people regardless of what may have happened. You're going to say something?
Can we touch on what Nathan's sword had inscribed on it?
What did it say?
It said, "I belong to the warrior in whom the ways of new and old have come together."
Love it.
Heck yeah.
That shit is so fucking cool.
Am I right in insinuating that was the ending of his poem? That was, they referenced the ending of the poem twice, and he said, "I'm still working on it." And then whenever the sword, I don't remember the full poem, but I'm pretty sure that rhymes with the ending of the poem. I could be wrong, but the fact that it was inscribed on the sword and given to him, it was like this beautiful. That's what I took away from it. I could be wrong, but whenever he answers it, he's like, "What is inscribed on the handle?" And he says it. Whenever Katsumoto says it to him, it's like, for me, that was like, that's the end.
That's so cool.
That's the end of it right there.
And for me, it's the final words of Katsumoto.
Yeah,
are the end to what he wishes his poem was.
Right.
Because he said the tiger's eyes are like my own.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
So obviously not the same poem, but just I think the course of his life. I think. Yeah.
Yeah. It's really deep. No, it's really deep, and I it was really great. You're right. Again, it was a beautiful sword. And actually, again, another little fun fact. I normally do all these fun facts in one go, but we're actually just stumbling across them as I go. Right. Is that let me see if I can't find it. Where is it? Right here. The swordsmith that presents that sword is a real swordsmith, and his name is Shoji Yoshihara, and he is a mokusa, which is a mokansa. Sorry. Anyways, he is a master level swordsmith, which is the highest rank that you can get in Japan, supposedly for making a sword. So when he presents it to
that's
Katsumoto,
a work of art.
That is his finest
Better
blade.
take care of that thing.
Right. Another little fun fact here while we're just sitting here is that samurai, in this context of the title of the film, is actually plural. So it's not just referring to Tom Cruise being the last samurai. It is samurai, the plural, as in like this whole village is the last samurai.
Oh, viewers, I wish you could see my face.
You're like,
it was shock in its beauty.
Right.
Man, it's like seeing a cheeseburger for the first time in your life.
Yeah, you're like, oh man, look at that beauty.
Along the same vein as saying the last moose.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The last meese.
Right.
Yeah. So anyways, but yes, this whole fight sequence up until the very end, especially whenever, it is the epitome of what is the meme that they always talk about? The male instinct to fight till the very end, to go out in a blaze of glory.
Insurmountable odds.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Die in a blaze of glory.
The incomparable male drive to want to go out in a blaze of glory.
Right.
It's what it feels like.
And another study in contrast, there's also like contrasting notes in the movie, but with the underpinning of sameness. So in the first fight, as they're facing the samurai, the English-influenced Japanese soldiers are being told by Nathan to hold their fire. But one guy fires off a shot, and then like a split second later, another guy does. And soon everyone's firing way too far from their targets. Yeah. And they get mowed down, as they should, for not following orders and not being good soldiers or thinking clearly. Meanwhile, at the end of the film, after these big weapons have been used and so much death has been caused with so much ease that feels wrong.
Right.
One guy stops, makes everyone stop, and then he bows, and then another guy bows, and soon every soldier is bowing to the remaining samurai. Sadly singular.
Yeah. That again, this this moment, which was very touching for me, is whenever they gotten all shot up, and it's Nathan and Katsumoto on the ground, and Katsumoto grabs his sword, and it's in referencing to know he's gonna probably what was it called?
Seppuku.
You know he's gonna probably do that at this point.
Yeah.
And Nathan tries to stop him and is like, "Hey, we've done it." Like, and then he looks into his eyes as Katsumoto looked at him and says, "You have regained your honor. Now let me regain mine," in a way. And it was like, dude, because that's the way he would have gone out in that kind of moment. He fought to the very end, and then they still had failed, and that's all she wrote. You have fought, and you have lived, and you are here. You've regained your honor. Now let me go out in honor. And it's like, God, man, and it was so powerful to be, because that was the first moment that made me tear up, is the fact that Nathan's standing there with his sword, and then of course kind of helps him stand up or get on his knees at least, and then of course helps plunge the blade in, and it's like this beautiful moment of like, what a way to go out, that not only were you side by side with the person you call friend, but then you were also able to be honorably put out of service by your friend in a way that was like, damn, dude, that's heavy. And in a whole new way, because again, like I said, you're watching these characters kind of go throughout. Like I said, this whole second act is this rapport, this building of this relationship of like enemies to friends kind of thing. Yeah. And then at the very end, to be like, to be that person that you trusted in and confided in, to be there with you all the way until this very hard decision, I would imagine. It's like, man, that's deep.
And one that he was not raised with. You know,
right,
for a samurai to do that makes perfect sense.
Right.
For an American of, I do not hurt my team.
Yeah.
No friendly fire. I am here to the end. I'll die instead of you.
Right.
So you go, no, I'm going to stab you in the belly with your own knife.
Right,
and then hold you somewhat tenderly as you die.
Right, as a friend. And as he's welling up with, and he's like, he's able to see the cherry blossoms, and it all like brings together this whole poem, this whole life, this, you know, the destiny that he's talked about is just all fulfilled right there in that moment. It's like, damn, dude, that's so good.
Yeah.
There was a really well-resolved series of beats.
Don't get me wrong. Like I said, sad. You would have wished it wouldn't have happened that way, but at the same time, for the circumstances and what was happening,
it was probably the best way it could have
ended.
And
super good.
I as a viewer hope that memory sticks in the minds of all those soldiers, and in that way they also became samurai. They became servants of the emperor, in that I will obey every order that is for the benefit of the emperor and Japan. I will not obey the orders of Amora anymore.
This scumbag. Ridiculous. And okay, now I will say there has been a couple of times in a movie where as the scene's playing out, I will have come up with different dialogue in my head, or I will have written different dialogue that I thought was better. One of them, and I won't get into it, my fiance showed me Frozen 2, and there was one scene in particular that I rewrote a scene for, and it made her cry hysterically, and I didn't mean to. It's a kid's movie, and there was this one moment, and I don't know if it matters or not. I don't want to spoil anything. There was this one moment in particular that I was like, it's Disney, and they would never do this. But let's say hypothetically we want to make this sad moment even sadder, and then I rewrote just one line of dialogue, and I acted it out. And at that point, she was like, "Why'd you why'd you say that? And then of course, and at that point there was no consoling her. She was, and I was like, it didn't actually happen. And she was like, no, but you painted such a good enough picture, and it's so well written that I believe it now, and it's sad. And I'll tell you about it later. But anyways, there was a scene that at the very end, and we'll get there, I had that moment, and I was going to say something that I thought was kind of like, was going to be more impactful than what actually happened. And then at the very end, it kind of proved me wrong in a way.
Yeah.
But I still think it could have been cool either way. So there's this point where Nathan, he is wounded and he's hobbling, and we're at the very end, and the Emperor's about to sign over a treaty to like have the whole weapons and the whole deal's about to get sealed away, and Amura's about to get what he wants, all his money and all the weapons and everything else.
His McDuck money.
Yeah, his Scrooge McDuck money. Right. Nathan walks in there with the sword that Katsumoto was trying to give to the Emperor out of respect, and was going to say, like, you can tell me to keep my sword or relinquish my sword, and I will give it to you. And of course, he ends up not responding, and then is escorted out. Really touching moment, really heavy. So he walks in there, and you see the same wrapping, and you're like, oh, buddy, we know what this is.
Oh, yeah.
And then he shows, just like it was shown, how he's learning the culture. He shows nothing but respect to the Emperor, and Amura's getting pissed off because the Emperor's kind of speaking on his own behalf now and doing what he's doing. And the one scene I'm talking about is when Nathan is holding the sword and is saying that this is the sword of Katsumoto, and he would have wanted you to have this. And you can tell in his voice and in his facial expression, this is hard to say emotionally. Mm-hmm. The Emperor steps down from his pedestal and gets down, and Amura's getting pissed off because he's like, we'll deal with him later. Like, we'll deal with this situation later. Let's go ahead and finish up this so I can get my money, and then you can continue with what you're doing. And there was this one moment whenever I don't remember exactly what Amura said, but he said something to the tune of, he is your enemy.
Right, this man fought
against you. And so badly that I wish the Emperor would have gotten some gusto and turned around and said, and he has shown me more respect than you ever have.
Yeah.
And at that moment, I was like, oh, like that's what I felt. Because at that point, this man is on his knees respecting me, giving me the weapon of this man that sacrificed his life for me and gave nothing but his life for me. And what have you done for me except for cause me pain and turmoil and the loss of all my people? And at that point, I was like, ooh, that's what I would have said that moment. And I was like, and that feels good and justifiable. But he doesn't say anything. Or I think he says something like, he ignores him in a way and continues this conversation with Nathan. And I mean, and he's holding this sword. I mean, he's like, there's like tears welling up. And he, I believe he asks if he was there with him till the very end, and he was like, yes. And then he stands up and makes the decision that he doesn't want to do this. This isn't what's best for the people. And man, and this is the heavy moment that I was talking about, is that he takes the sword from Nathan. Nathan's still on his hands and knees in respect. He takes the sword, and it's so good. Yeah. Amura is like,
perhaps we should discuss this.
Yeah.
And I was like, no,
and
you've done quite
for
enough.
The people.
Right. And he's like, I'm not going to go through with it. And then Amura's like, you have brought shame upon me. And then he's like, well, here, I will.
If it's too unbearable.
If it's, yeah.
Wait. So Amura goes, you were not thinking for what's right for the people. He goes, oh, well, if it's the people you're concerned about, how would you feel if I confiscated all of your family's assets and gave them to the people as my gift?
Right.
Then he goes, and then Amura goes, well, you'll disgrace me.
Right.
And then the Emperor hands the sword to him.
Yeah, then I will give you this sword then.
Yeah.
Right. Feel free.
Because I'm sorry. I don't remember. I just watched this for the first time.
Oh, yeah,
so I don't remember all the dialogue. That there was the reason why that moment right there was so impactful was that he's sitting there and he is showing and Nathan's showing nothing but respect, and with tears in his eyes, he's like, if you command me, I will take my own life in this scenario. I will take my own life for you out of respect if you think that I am your enemy and I've done you wrong. And it's like, man, that is a claim right there. Yeah. And the fact that like the emperor notices that and is like, not only were you an outsider, you were showing me more respect than this man ever has. And not only that, but you were also there with Katsumoto to the very end.
Oh yeah.
And then when he's like, I'll take all your stuff and I'll just give it all to the people. And he's like, that would be such, you would bring such shame upon my family, such disgrace. He's like, well then here, I will give you this sword and then you can do what the honorable thing is. And we all know what you should do here. And it's like, damn.
So my rebuttal to the emperor going, the respect he's shown me, I think makes him human again and makes him kind of selfish.
Yeah.
So for Algren to go, for Amor to go, this man fought against you, and for Algren to go, Emperor, if you consider me your enemy, I'll end my life right now.
Right.
I will not allow an enemy of the emperor to exist. And that to be the thing that kind of sways the emperor, for him to go focusing on his people. I can only imagine what it was like to know that due to your inaction, you killed your teacher and the one who had the spirit of Japan in mind. And now he's looking at someone who was not only there when Katsumoto died, but is now talking like Katsumoto. And I think that changed the emperor, because that line to Amora was as if Katsumoto had said it. And so we had such this change for the emperor. So Katsumoto starts with honor. Algren has no honor that he lost.
Right.
But this emperor, much like Amora, didn't have honor to begin with. They were both very weak, selfish characters.
Yeah.
And Amora failed. He never gained honor. The emperor gained honor, but too late. But I think it's a story of gaining honor that's been lost, and what happens when we don't stand up and do the right thing.
Damn.
Yeah.
What a heavy episode, dude.
Yeah.
Super good. What a great movie. I really did enjoy this so much, dude.
Very nice indeed.
Crazy.
So go out to your local thrift store, scour the shelves, and find your perfect copy of The Last Samurai.
Yeah, it said, just to kind of like throw in some other little spicy tidbits in there, it said that Tom Cruise spent 2 years learning Japanese and sword play for his preparation for this film, actually.
Wow.
And it says that The Last Samurai is actually based on the actions of a French soldier that was stationed in Japan who resigned and fought with the remnant of shogunate, which is interesting.
Damn.
And there was another one here. Oh, I think his name is Ken. I can't remember his name. The guy who played Katsumoto. I think this is like his first time like being in a film that was like for American crowds, kind of.
I want to say he also played Dr. Serizawa in the new legendary Godzilla film.
You're right. That's where I know him from. Yeah. Oh, wow. What a fun time.
Yeah.
Fun fact about the movie, if I remember it correctly, the archer we all love so much is actually samurai.
Oh, really?
Again, if memory serves, so viewers out there /Ian, double check me, and
I don't know right now.
Wear the shame sign.
I see.
Sorry, no seppuku for me. No, thank you.
It's okay. You'll just have to live with your shame.
And I'll be like Algren, and I'll press on.
It says that the final battle takes place on May 26th, and true fans watch the film on May 26th every year as a little memento.
Done deal.
There you go.
How about we grab some sushi next time?
There you
down
go.
The calendar.
I love it. That's dude.
You guys joke, but I'm literally writing it on my calendar.
Yeah, I believe it. So anyways, we've been a little long on this episode, but we had a special guest, and we had a really heavy movie that dealt with like I said, the complexity of human emotion and the complexity of culture and people throughout the world. And I think that is powerful and hard to summarize And I
Which
think
is why we're giving up.
right. Well, no, I'm not saying we're giving up. I think we did an all right job in an hour and 15 minutes almost. So, hey, I would, at a wager, we did a pretty good job. So, but anyways, thank you so much for listening. If you're trying to find ways to reach out to us, you can go to linktree/Ian Wolf and see all of our links, or you can just type in The Aftermath on all your major podcasting platforms, and you should be able to find us there. Thank you again, Dominic, for joining us.
Thank you guys for tolerating me. This has been a blast.
I hope we get to do at least another one. I always love your takes. It's all, and a lot of times between Quigley and Last Samurai, I think they've both been pretty heavy. Oh, so
yeah,
nothing wrong with that, but I think it's great. I just feel like every time you come on here, we're like, what does this mean? You know what I mean? I love it. So
man, I have a lighthearted one for you guys next time.
Cool.
Yeah,
okay, I'm glad to hear. And as always, you can also throw your favorite coin into a well, and that's how you can also get the podcast too.
Right. The echo will not be the splash of said coin, but our voices going into your ears.
I heard if you actually scream into a windmill,
we'll tell you to shut up.
Then the windmill will respond. That's how you can also hear the podcast that way too.
Right.
Thank you guys for telling me. I had no idea.
Yeah. No is there any obscure ways you listen to this podcast?
Usually I kind of like give my Dreamcatcher a high five and then I go to sleep.
Cool.
And like the sultry sounds of y'all's voices.
Yeah. I heard if you put two multimeters together, they actually create a loop, and then the podcast will appear that way.
That's radio interference, and so that's actually illegal.
Okay. I see. Well, sorry. Then don't do that one. I was wrong. Incorrect. But anyways,
this is now illegal.
Until next time, thank you so much for listening.
See ya.
Bye-bye.